Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of the Farm Down NFL podcast. With me, Jim, Finn, Denver, Dave, and Punk Raider. We're here to talk about NFL, boys. How are we doing?
Extremely
Living the
tired.
dream.
Hardly living the dream. How about you, Punk?
Well, I was just letting the other two get it out of the way first, but I'm almost officially retiring from the picks this season after the way this has gone.
It's not gone well, is it?
We'll see. We'll see what happens.
Well,
But
you're beating the people just about, so
yeah, but let's be honest, the way the people are performing, I think you can beat them if you're, picking Premier League games rather than the NFL. But
Oh.
I think I'm beating the people and I missed a week on the app.
Oh my word.
it's maybe
I
true.
added that score in, don't worry about that. Guys, we're here to do the Week 8 review show. We're going to go through all 16 games that happened over the weekend. And we always start with the Thursday night game. And that was the Vikings at the Rams. I'm not going to spend long on this. We all thought the Rams would be a bit too banged up still just to overcome a Vikings team that had only taken one loss before this game. Turns out the Rams weren't too banged up at all. As Puka Nacua racked up 106 receiving yards, Cooper Kupp had 51 on a touchdown, DeMarcus Robinson had 2 touchdowns, and Kyren Williams is now at 10 consecutive games with a touchdown. Vikings fans can whine about the face mask safety that ended the game, but the Vikings weren't going 100 yards on that last drive. The final score was the Vikings 20, Rams 30.
They might have done. You don't know that.
They were not.
No,
Who
I
would
agree.
have thought that if the Rams had their receivers, they could actually move the ball?
I don't think it was that. I think the effectiveness of the Rams was because they did a really smart mix of rush and pass. Really, really smart. And they ran it at times. I think they ran it at one point on a 3rd and 9 and actually got it because everyone was expecting a pass. Why the hell do you run it on 3rd and 9? But they did. And it was really smart play calling. But
then they've been given those play calling options because the receivers are then lining up.
yes, I will concede that. It's a very, very good point. I concede that entirely. But it's sad for the Rams that the game ended the way it did because I don't think that the Vikings were going to march down the other end and score. But you want to win it rather than it being given to you on a ref's decision. So a bit of a shame from that perspective.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It sort of tarnishes.
They're not
result
talking about
in
the
the
good win. They're talking about a bad
Everyone's
call from
talking
the
about
refs.
Yeah, exactly.
it's a
Which I
shame.
don't mind.
We seem to talk about bad calls about the refs an awful lot.
That's why we're here.
It's
Hey man, this could be a Premier League podcast and we'd still be doing the same. It's the way it is.
Boxing, golf,
Whatever you
Formula
want.
One, it's always the same.
That final decision, I think all scoring decisions should go to VAR, all of them, whether it's a
Well, hang on
safety
a
or a
minute.
touchdown or everything.
What's the point in instantaneous replay if it's not going to overturn a call like that?
Yeah, I agree.
Makes no sense.
It's not even a case of, hang on a minute while we review it. It literally should be coming down from New York. You've missed a face mask.
Or worst case scenario, send the back judge over and just say, have a butcher's at this and see what you reckon.
Yeah.
I mean, how many tablets are there knocking around on those sidelines?
But no
Someone
one
just
threw a
hand them.
flag, I think was the big problem there, Dave, is that no one on the field saw an issue.
You reckon everyone just bottled it and went, I'm not making the call on the last play of the game. Have a
I just want to go home, boys.
Well, I just think it wouldn't make any difference anyway. So
I think all scoring plays should have a review next to them just to make sure, all of them. Whether it's field goal, safety, makes the difference.
I think what it does do is it does make the Vikings quite interesting for the next few weeks. Not that they weren't interesting when they were undefeated, but now they've lost a couple. It's a different kettle of fish, and it's how can they respond to adversity and so on and so forth. I think from a neutral's point of view, it's probably right that the Rams won just to keep everything shipshape and interesting, but. Equally, I do think the Rams played some shenanigans with their injury reports last week because there were Cooper Kupp and co were definitely not playing come Wednesday afternoon. And
when
then
we picked the games,
I've tuned into the game. They're like, what? All of these guys are playing. I might have changed my pick, but
See, I think a team should be able to pick whoever they want and not have to declare it on the Friday. The only time you have to declare it is
when they walk out of the tunnel.
No. Is on the day of the game
When they line up.
When you name your 46-man roster. So each game you have to name a 46 of this 53 roster who's active for that game. And at that point you should say, okay, this is who's playing. This is who's on the roster for this game. I think it's like, think in football, you don't know until 3:00 on a Saturday when the team list comes in who's playing, who's not.
Well, the team list comes in 90 minutes before in football.
Whatever, or 2:10, right. Whatever, I don't care.
It's
Makes a difference.
Anyway, we're moving on from this discussion. We're going to go start on the Sunday games, and actually, we're going to do something a little bit different this week. Dave's been asking for it for a while, so I've actually.
No, don't do the injury report thingy.
It's not the injury report,
Oh,
Dave.
thank God for that.
I was about to leave.
Can you imagine how long we'd be here if we had to do an
Oh
injury
my God,
this
yeah.
season?
Yeah, it'd be
Strap in.
25
We need
minutes
a separate episode, wouldn't
just on the Rams.
No, you've been asking for it, Dave, so I'm going to give it to you. It's a Call Your Jets.
Ooh.
It's a Call Your Jets episode. I think it's about time. We're about halfway through the season now.
Yep, I think it's perfectly
Um,
valid.
And
Who
so
are the
I
hype
picked out.
merchants?
Well, exactly. That's why I'm going to be calling some Jets hopefully in the next few games. The first one I'm going to do is the Ravens at the Browns. Now 5-3, those Ravens, allowing the Jameis Winston bounce to actually work out. This should have not happened, all right? I know it's an away division game, but this Browns team confidence was through the floor. On a 5-game losing streak, they just lost at home to the Bengals, and their only win was against the Jags. Now, the others here will chalk it up as a trap game, and the Ravens are fine, and you all might be right, but the best teams find ways to win this kind of a game, and it's the defense that needs to be held accountable. They are easy to score on this season. They're averaging 26 points allowed a game. Winston was allowed to throw for 334 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions, including that 38-yard winner to Cedric Tillman with a minute left. The final score in this one was the Baltimore Ravens 24, the Cleveland Browns 29.
Now, we all know that you hate the Browns, but you despise the Ravens. So you picking this as a Call You Jets, I think there's a little bit of you punching down this. You'll have to
There was
excuse me if I decide
Well, I'll
not
punch,
quite a
I'll
big
punch down
smile
on the
buy
Ravens
into
because I'm
this
the Steelers.
scoreline.
Yeah.
You went into a lot of extra information that you wouldn't normally in your little mini game
I
review.
don't know what's going to happen here.
So, I don't know.
Doesn't mean I'm not right.
Some bias going on.
Am I
But
wrong?
you know what? I will give you the defense point. And I mentioned it last week that it will be a concern to them moving forward because they know that the offense can make things happen and they can rack up a hell of a load of points when they want to. But the concern would be if the offense, for whatever reason, couldn't quite get going, then they allow a lot of points. And we saw it in this game where the offense wasn't as free flowing as they have in recent weeks, and then the D isn't able to make the stops that you'd want them to, and then you allow a very subpar Browns team to outscore you. So it is a concern, but I would, as you said, Jim, it's just a little blip. They'll be back.
They did allow the Browns to convert 8 of 15 third downs. The Ravens only converted 2 of 10, and were 0 for 2 on fourth down as well.
Do you want to know something interesting, though?
I'd love to.
Someone who works for Google is obviously a Browns fan because normally when you type into Google NFL and you've got the little tab that shows you like a 10-minute highlight.
Yeah.
The highlight of this game is 125 minutes long, and I am not joking. If you click onto it and go through to YouTube, there are 2 hours of highlights for this game. Someone who works for Google is a Browns fan or a Steelers fan who hates the Ravens. Jim, do you work for Google by any chance?
Nothing to do with me, Squire.
Genuinely, just 2 hours worth of highlights. And the Ravens just underestimate them. They thought the Browns, they did exactly what we did, underestimate them, think we'll come in, steamroll them, done. That was my fear for when the Broncos played the Panthers, except the Browns really did come into the game and play really, really well.
Jameis Winston has history of doing this. Anytime he's the backup quarterback and comes in for a game or two, he plays fantastically well.
Yeah.
It's when teams are able to prepare for him and scheme for him, that's when he struggles. So pure arm talent and chuck him in there, he's always going to pick up a win or two. I'm not. I'm a little bit dubious about the Ravens being in a Call Your Jets type scenario.
Just call your Jets. Just call
him
them down a little bit.
You were so down on them when they were 0-2.
Yeah.
And they pretty much won every game.
I'm telling you guys to
this
call your Jets on them.
It's like
we are.
It's not
fine.
Dave's the one that's picked him for the Super Bowl. So
True.
I hope they get beat this week.
And if Dave doesn't fancy cooling down on them, then I don't really see it. But
Dave's invested in not cooling down on them.
No, I thought they were this season going to be insanely productive with Lamar Jackson, good wide receivers, Mark Andrews being, for me, still one of the premier tight ends, although he's dropped off a bit of a cliff this season because of injuries. Pass game that's half decent, an RPO game that's elite, and Derrick Henry. all of those things should add up to them being absolutely elite. We're just not seeing it.
And they've
When
just
they
added
win, they
Deontay
seem to win
Johnson as well,
messy.
haven't they? So,
Yeah.
it's
Good luck with that.
But
we'll see.
Thanks for
doing
that
all
video,
right.
Jim.
they're doing that 1998 Newcastle. You score 3, we'll score 4.
Football analogy.
It's that kind of thing. They
Exactly.
just seem to outscore teams. So everyone's saying, "Wow, in terms of offense, they're getting tons and tons of yards." Yeah, they're having to. That's the issue.
They're allowing
That's
a
what
lot
I'm
of
saying.
points.
Yeah.
But we're saying they're still able to
some Jets.
outscore them. And at the end of the day,
They
Jim,
didn't outscore the Browns.
well, all right,
They
on
didn't
this
outscore the
occasion,
Browns. The Browns, that's their second win of the season.
I think the only person here that needs to call their Jets at the moment is you,
Yeah.
Jim.
Yeah,
I will not call
Jim,
any
call your
Jets.
Call your Jets.
Let's go on to the next one then, shall we? Let's do the Dallas Cowboys at the San Francisco 49ers. And call your Jets, San Francisco. Yes, you got a win at home, which is nice after you lost the last 2. But this was a Cowboys team just begging to be beaten. And you not only went into halftime down by 4, but you allowed them a sniff later on after you'd established a big lead. Injuries, I hear you cry. Well, cry me a river because every team's got them. Dallas still let you score with your third string running back, Kittle on the back line of his career, and made Brock Purdy look like Lamar Jackson with 56 rushing yards and a touchdown. But it's the defense that ain't the same as it was. You let Ezekiel Elliott score on you, and he runs like Trent Richardson when he played for the Colts. Dak Prescott was throwing interceptions like confetti, but the Niners seemed to lose CeeDee Lamb and allow him to go for 146 yards and 2 touchdowns. The Niners are lucky that Dak's the ultimate choke artist. The final score here was the Cowboys 24, 49ers 30.
This I can get behind.
I wonder why.
I thought so.
This used to be something to be respected, the call your Jets. Now it's just a way for you to pick on teams you don't like.
I definitely didn't slip in
Bitten
five.
fact here.
I think the team that needs to call their Jets are the Cowboys, because you get half of their fan base saying this is the worst Cowboy teams I've ever seen, and the other half are saying, a couple of decent players, a couple of injuries coming back, and we can still be good.
Dave, who cares what a Cowboys fan says?
I think the truth is somewhere in the middle of them, but there's so many of them, Jim. That's the problem.
That means nothing.
I think both of these teams can be okay, but potentially nothing special. And the 49ers have lost the best player in the NFL, most effective player in the NFL. So they're going to be bad. I've never even heard of their running back. Couldn't even remember his name.
Isaac Guerrero.
That's the one.
There he is.
When I picked the Cowboys in the picks last week, you all laughed at me.
Yeah.
It really wasn't that far off, was it?
You did lose.
No, it lost, but it was a lot closer than I expect anyone thought it would be. The Cowboys just the Cowboys this season, aren't they? They will get themselves into a position and then find a way to lose it or just not bother turning up at all. 49ers, we've said all season long we don't expect them to be the massive juggernaut that they have been over the last few seasons, and that's just holding out to be true. So I don't know if it's so much call your Jets as you are what we said you were. And, I think even without the injuries that the 49ers have had, and, there are teams out there that have had much worse injury lists than them. I think they're just a team that's in a closing window, and they need to do something about it. I think they'll still probably be there or thereabouts for the playoffs come the end of the regular season.
That's because all the other teams in their division are useless.
Yeah,
there is that.
But for the bottom at the moment,
they all just beat each other, don't they? So. Yeah. It's it's a weird one, but yeah, no, 49ers are bit of an enigma, and the Cowboys are just not very good.
Yeah, they just need to call their Jets. I mean, they've just improved to 4-4 going into the bye week now for San Francisco, and the Cowboys are 3-4, and that game was the first after their bye week, so they are cooked. I mean, if you spent 2 weeks getting ready for that game and you're still lost like that, you're done.
Well, I mean, it doesn't help their Dak's just giving them the ball.
Yeah, that as well. Yeah. Oh well, at least they haven't paid him. Let's do the next one then. The Colts at the Texans. Now I don't like to do this one, all right, but the Texans just need to call their Jets just a little bit, okay, just a little, not all the way, just a few notches. The Colts don't make any sense to me, okay. They have an offensive-minded young head coach who was able to make Gardner Minshew work last season, but they aren't utilizing their very green quarterback, and their second-round draft pick receiver Adonai Mitchell has just 11 catches for 118 yards this season. We're in week 8. Yet the Colts were able to hang around all day as Houston settled for field goals 3 times from the red zone. They're lucky that Joe Mixon's on one right now, because with Stephon Diggs leaving with a non-contact ACL tear that has him done for the season, it ain't getting any easier for the Texans. The final score was the Colts 20, Texans 23.
I do agree that it's a worrying time for the Texans moving forward, particularly without Diggs. I don't know when Collins is meant to be back.
Soon.
But
Next week or
yes,
two, I would have thought.
next week or two.
Can't go back soon enough.
But yes, they got the running game working. But the major concern would be Stroud and the fact that they're struggling to protect him.
hmm
That being said, a cool your Jets sort of section is quite steep, I think, here, Jim. I think it's a bit of a
Nah,
stretch.
I agree with them.
Yay!
Do
So
you?
I'm working my way around the group here. So this time it's Dave.
Oh, slowly
up,
but
Dave.
surely.
Just because talent-wise, they're a top-tier team
hmm
and they're not playing even remotely close to it. Look at their recent results. They beat the Colts, the lowly Colts, by a field goal. They lost by 2 against the Packers, and the Packers did everything to try and throw that game away. They put 20 on the Patriots, but they also conceded 21 points to the Patriots. The Patriots should not have been scoring that many points. They beat the Bills by a field goal and only just scraped by the Jags before, and that was just after getting tonked by the Minnesota Vikings. So
hmm
they're not performing brilliantly. Now, I happen to be talking to a Texans fan. I'd never met before. He was a good guy though, and he mentioned that he's really worried about the playoffs this season because he's convinced they're getting in the playoffs, and I think I am too. The thing he's worried about is they finish the season with the Dolphins, who will be good by then. Then they play the Chiefs, then they play the Ravens. That's their last 3 games. They're going to have no momentum going into the playoffs, like none. So he's a bit worried about the fact that once they do go in the playoffs, it's going to be really, really tricky for them.
I mean, the first thing that stands out to me is, Dave, how many times have we told you not to go talking to strangers? Even if they offer you puppies and sweets, you shouldn't be talking to
Well, I
strangers.
woke up and he happened to be standing at the bottom of my bed with a balaclava on, so I couldn't really ignore him.
Yeah, I think the Texans they're in that unenviable position of having played so well last season that everyone expected them to be just as
Yes.
good this season,
hmm
and it was always likely they were going to take a bit of a step backwards because let's be honest, it's a 4-year project that in year 1 went through the stratosphere. So, I don't think the Texans are. I don't think they're a team I'm worried about as much as they're just a team that's got a few growing pains. Now, the offensive line doesn't look great, but they've got a mobile enough quarterback that actually, unlike the Giants, say for example, who have a similar problem with their offensive line, uh, CJ Stroud can move about. CJ Stroud has got the mental faculty to slide and find receivers regardless. And I think, Mixon is pretty much playing as well as he was at the Bengals. So I think the Texans will be all right. I don't think there's a problem there. I think you're right. I think they need to worry about those last 3 games. If they do go into the playoffs without any momentum whatsoever, then yeah, that could be an issue. But I also think that it's very possible that by another 6 weeks or so, they will actually have kind of found the magic formula again and could quite easily win 1 or 2 of those games. So it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, I don't think did anyone really go into this season singing and dancing about the Texans? I know a few people
Jim
did in
did.
the media, but
Everyone said they're going to
I
walk this
haven't.
division.
Well, which they will.
They're still going to win the division quite
The
comfortably.
division's
Week 8.
crap. It's the worst division in football.
It's not the worst division.
It is.
I just said a couple of notches. Just called it just didn't say a lot, just a little.
I think Punk's right in the fact
I
that
think you just turn the heat down slightly.
their 4-year plan happened in a year, and it's very, very easy. We'd all be doing the same thing. If we had the year
Yeah.
they had last year, we'd be doing the same thing. I mean, Punk would be absolutely insufferable.
I'd be
I'd be
amazed
worse.
if I had the season they had last year.
I'd be
We've never
worse.
seen it.
I'd probably
No.
de-age myself by 35 years.
Still be partying.
And yeah, he'd just be like a eunuch. He'd just be unbelievable. And what we've seen is an enormous amount of development in 1 year, and in the second year, it's just come down a couple of steps. So you can understand why people are frustrated, but ultimately, compare where they are now to where they were 3 years ago. The development is still astonishing.
Or Davis
Main
Mills.
thing is they're winning games as well.
Yeah, they're scraping them. Just
Yeah.
saying. Just call them
They
nil.
are, yeah, they might be scraping them, but the record still shows them winning.
I was gonna say, looking at the standings, you wouldn't know that. It's still just W.
No. Yeah.
Mm.
Next game then. Let's do the Packers at the Jags. Now, who was the best quarterback in this game? Was it Jordan Love, who completed 14 passes for 196 yards and an interception? Was it Malik Willis, who completed 4 of 5 for 56 yards passing, 23 yards rushing and a touchdown? Or was it Trevor Lawrence, who threw 21 completions for 308 yards, 2 touchdowns, and just 1 interception? The fact you can't jump to the Packers starter is enough to call some Jets here. If it wasn't for Josh Jacobs at running back, who had 127 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns, there's a good chance the Packers aren't making out of Duval with the win. We saw Green Bay take an L at home to the Vikings a few weeks ago. Next week, it's the Lions calling round before the bye week. Trust me, call your Jets now while you still can look respectable. The final score was the Packers 30, Jaguars 27.
I'm going to concede because I don't know how I feel about this one.
Well, it's Punk's turn to agree with me now.
Yeah.
Come on, Punk, you can do it. You can...
Do I agree? No, I can't agree with you, Jim. It's you.
Oh,
Look, the Packers are the Packers. They've been overhyped all season long, and they were last season just
Call your
because they had a
Jets.
little bit of a run. I don't think it's call your Jets though. I think they're trying to keep pace in a division that has got really almost 2 powerhouses in it. Almost 3 now, the way the Bears are coming up as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure calling your Jets is what needs to happen, but I do wonder sometimes if Jordan Love just believes his own hype. So it might not be that the Green Bay Packers need to call their Jets as much as the quarterback needs to call his Jets, and just actually sometimes take that easy pass, take that easy throw, rather than always trying to squeeze it into a closing window that really you shouldn't be trying to squeeze a ball into. Look, Josh Jacobs is doing Josh Jacobs things. It's nothing he hasn't done for the past 6 or 7 years. The defense
3 years,
good.
not 6 or 7.
Yeah.
3.
Oh, he's
Yeah.
done it ever since he came into the
Who would
league.
sell him?
He's done it every year since he's been in the league when he's on a contract year. We know he loves the
In that
contract
case, it
year.
must be 6 or 7 years because he's 2 contracts in.
I agree with Jim.
I don't know.
I've thought about it.
Is anyone? Yeah, but has anyone really been that high on the Packers?
Packers fans.
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah, but
the
I
main
was-
thing. Packers fans are like Brentford fans. You're just not sure if they're sane. That's the problem.
Sometimes they turn up, sometimes
In a
they
nice
don't.
way.
Talking of sane fans, though, I did stumble across a Jags fan last week playing 5-a-side,
Yeah.
and I asked him what's gone wrong, and he didn't have much to say other than the fact that he said, "Just you wait, and speak to me again after the Super Bowl." So he's
Ooh.
obviously
Oh, wow.
very confident that they're going to make it to the Super Bowl, which makes me wonder whether he's watching a different season.
Maybe something like a top 3 draft pick or something. Maybe that's what he's referring to.
So
Maybe.
the Jags are currently what, 2-6?
Yes.
Yeah.
2-6.
Mm.
And the Texans are 6-2. So to even make the playoffs,
Well, the
what
Colts are
have you got in
4
other
and 4.
divisions? You're going to look 5-3 in the North. Broncos are 5-3. So they've got to make up 3 games on virtually everybody to even have a sniff of the playoffs.
It's not happening, unfortunately.
It's
but,
just not happening at
No.
all.
Unless
His
Trevor
mind is-
Lawrence is singing at the halftime Super Bowl show, then that's what it means.
He might do the
Yeah.
anthem. He might do the anthem.
Yeah.
We're going to do one more Call Your Jets team, and it's kind of the whole point of the segment. Really, is the Jets versus the Patriots, and whatever your preseason or even post Devontae hopes were for this franchise, they were too high. Okay, just call your Jets. You can't beat this season's Patriots. Doesn't seem to matter if it's Drake May or Jacoby Brissett.
I
They've
think
gone from-
those
they've gone
Jets
from averaging-
are well and truly called, Jim.
Exactly. They've gone from averaging 17 points conceded a game when Salah was the head coach to 28 points without him. The offense hasn't improved. When the Patriots needed to move the ball in shoe clock, they were allowed to do both. Ramondre Stevenson getting the game-winning points, and the final score was the Jets 22, Patriots 25.
Now,
Aaron
this one I
Rodgers.
can get behind.
Yes.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers.
Can't we all?
Aaron Rodgers looks absolutely crap. Like
He looks like a
completely.
40-year-old man.
Oh, no, 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 no.
Yes.
That's an insult to 40-year-old men.
Some of us have hit
He
this.
looked horrific in this game. Like, really awful. You know where you see a doddery old man in a supermarket going, ketchup or catsup? And not, that was him. He was Mr. Burns. I've
Uh,
not seen him play that badly ever. And I can't get on board with anything the Jets do. Sorry.
No, I
No,
agree.
I had the Jets winning this division in our
yes, you
preseason
did.
picks because I honestly thought they had the pieces. You know, the defense was still going to play as well. Rodgers, I wasn't even factoring in Rodgers playing that well, to be honest. I figured, 200 yards and 2 touchdowns a game and pretty much get him through. But yeah, he's been absolutely dreadful. The play calling's been woeful. He's not even attempted to get on the same page as most of his receivers. Devontae Adams has done absolutely nothing since he got there. Uh,
Apart from
enjoyed
give
paying
team
him.
talks.
Hmm.
Huh?
Apart from give team talks.
Well, yeah, maybe
Well,
some
Stop
United is
pick sixes
bromance.
as well. You
and
need
the
to
odd
stop a pick six.
interview to a podcast or six. But
Yeah.
apart from that, he's really not done a lot.
We need
So
to ask him, don't we?
I think, I think, I think you're right. I think this is the ultimate call your Jets, and it just so very aptly happens to be the Jets.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, the
Just
Jets fans have had enough of Aaron Rodgers because they're rolling their eyes now when he's talking.
Oh,
I mean,
rolling their eyes, they're burning his shirts and all sorts.
yeah,
Are they
he's just come
really?
out today.
Yeah, yeah.
He's just come out today talking about drinking cayenne pepper and water because his punter told him it was a good idea. Never listen to a
that sounds
punter.
a lovely mix.
Never listen to advice from a punter. All right, guys. No financial advice, medical advice,
I
no
don't know. I feel like I want to
parking
try that.
advice.
Cayenne pepper and water, to be fair, as an older Matt, it works. It's
There's
not
a
bad.
Patreon. Come on, Finn.
Don't
There
do
is
it.
there's definitely
I
there's
don't care if
definitely
it
some
was right.
content
Don't
within
listen to a punter. All right.
drinking recipes.
No good can
But
come
on
of
this
it.
occasion,
But the problem really for Rodgers is that you can put up with his rubbish when he's winning, and when you've got a body of success to fall back on. He had that in Green Bay. Jets fans don't have that, and they were desperate for him to give them some. So the fact that he hasn't, and every move that's been made to make him feel better has made the team worse, has made
it's
this thing
because he's
spiral out of
because he's
control.
running it.
Well, exactly.
He's
But
making the decisions to
it's made the
make him
tide turn
feel
that much
better.
quicker.
The only win now team who are 2-6.
How do they do that? They were better with Zach Wilson.
Oh, it's outrageous.
He is
It
the false
is a
messiah.
mess. It's an absolute mess.
The thing I'm slightly worried about is in the preseason predictions. Punk, you had the Jets finishing top, and we had them finish third. I think we might have over-egged him having them third, to be perfectly honest. That's the problem.
You weren't supposed to lose to the Patriots.
No, I know, no one was. But
Oh.
no, they've massively underachieved. But it'll be fine because Reddick's coming back soon, and his team talks will lead them to success.
Yeah, real leader of men, Sam
Yeah.
Reddick. Let's move on then from the Call Your Jet segment. I'm going to go and do the anti one now, and that is the Bears at the Commanders. Now, I'm not too proud to admit when I called the Jets a bit too early, and last week in the picks episode, I bucked the consensus and picked against the Commanders, not because I didn't think they were good, but because I was worried about the Commanders and their history of not getting lucky. Well, after what happened in DC on Sunday night, I think it's time to officially boost your Jets on the Washington Commanders. Yeah, Jaden was still smarting from the rib injury that took him out of the Panthers game, but he was as elusive as ever. And when they needed the play at the end of the game, who stepped up but Tyreek Stevenson? Oh boy, what a play by him and what a game overall. Attempting to spear Terry McLaurin in the back of the end zone, back of the head, which led to a penalty and ultimately a field goal. The Commanders would have 4 of those before the game winner catch by Noah Brown. Tough luck for Chicago, but it's the Commanders' time now. A final score was the Bears 15, Commanders 18.
What a finish.
What an
I was so happy about this.
What a moment.
Well, wasn't it? Kill my hacker.
No, I'm not.
It's not all about you, Jim.
Not for any
Yes.
reasons
Isn't it?
like that. But the Bears, to me, are kind of, yeah, they've had a little bit of grief over the last few years, but, it's only sort of 10, 15 years since they were in a Super Bowl and were relevant. So, the
They
Commanders,
lost that Super Bowl.
they did.
Obviously.
They did lose it, but at least they got there.
Yeah.
For me, the Commanders are starting to edge towards teams like the Raiders, where it's been so long since they've been of any relevance whatsoever when it comes to postseason. And even worse, they've had owners that really shouldn't have been anywhere near owning a football team. But
Mhm.
I wish good things for the Commanders. I think they've got a really good team. I'm still sitting there going, is this a little bit of Texans from last season type thing? And next year they might take a step back. You know what? It doesn't really matter. If as long as they have a great season this season now, I'm very, very happy for the Commanders, after all the nonsense they've had to go through.
I think the key thing for the Commanders, particularly fan base as well, is we've seen in the past that they've got the ability to win games, but whenever they'd lose games, they would get blown out the water, and it was never a competitive game.
Mm,
We've seen this season they've taken so many steps forward, like Punks is in a way similar to the Texans last year in the way they're sort of currently playing and sort of the achievements they've got. And we've seen in games they've actually stayed close, even though they may end up with a loss. They're still sort of competing all the way through to the end. And we saw this here. It relies on a very special play and moment to win the game. But there's credit to the team that they're able to stay in the game throughout, and they allow themselves to make the chance to create that moment in the final second of the game. So it's huge progress to where they're at. Just hope that they can sort of continue because got a bit of a soft spot for them.
Not that much of a soft spot. You had them finishing below the Giants this season. Just saying.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, but I don't really know what I'm talking about. I sort of shout out my arse all the time.
That's maybe true. The one thing I want to say about the about Washington. Earlier on this week, we were looking on a website. The Halloween costumes you must not wear this year and all that kind of stuff.
yeah.
On that list, along with many other things that were completely wrong, was Dan Schneider. Now, I can't really imagine what a Dan Schneider Halloween costume might look like, but I
Glasses,
agree,
isn't it?
it absolutely should not be worn. So, kids, don't dress up as Dan Schneider.
No.
I'd also throw into that just speaking of Halloween, that no one should ever try and do a Terminator outfit ever again after seeing Miles Garrett's. I
Oh,
think
yeah, yeah.
that's a thing of immense beauty. I don't know how much that makeup job cost him, but it was worth it. It was
Mm.
definitely worth it.
Let's move on to the next game and let's do the Titans at the Lions. It's sometimes difficult to shine as a special teams group. You get lost amidst the scoring on offense or the big stops on defense. But there's a reason why Jared Goff only had 85 passing yards but 3 touchdowns. Why Tennessee had 191 more yards than Detroit but scored 38 less points. That reason is special teams. Between Khalil Dorsey and Khalif Raymond, the Lions racked up 262 yards on kick and punt returns. It had offensive coordinator Ben Johnson back to his bag of tricks for running back David Montgomery to throw a touchdown pass to Sam Laporta, the disrespect, and the final score of the Titans 14, Lions 52.
This was a massacre.
Absolute paddling this one.
Oh, you better believe that's a paddling.
Titans
Yes.
are giving up now, right? Because apparently Harold Landry's on the block, and he might be one of their best defensive players. So they're selling the farm basically to say, in a couple of years, we want to be much better because there's nothing about this team which looks progressive. And I never thought I'd say this. They need to go back to Will Levis because Mason Rudolph ain't it.
Bring back Mayo boy.
I'm worried about the Lions.
Why? Because they only scored
Oh.
50.
No, because
I thought
Should have been
the
100
70
this
was
one.
on the cards. I was gutted. Absolutely gutted.
You're not living
the
that
reason
down
I
now.
worry about the Lions is because we're in week 8 and they are playing almost perfect football.
Mm.
Now, you look at teams that go on and win Super Bowls and do really well in the playoffs. They tend to start a bit more shakily, but still win games. They're winning close games. There's an AFC West team that you would look at and hold up as the kind of picture perfect
And the
team
Broncos.
for that. They've not played well. They should have been beaten on many an occasion, but they're still winning games. The
Mm.
problem I have with the Lions is, are they using up all their points now and will end up kind of like the Colts used to? They'd always be amazing in the regular season. And then as soon as they got to the playoffs, yeah, it would all start falling apart.
Yeah.
So I'm a little bit worried about the Lions. I mean, I'd love it. Obviously, they're my Super Bowl pick. I think they're going to run the table, but yeah, yeah, it's just one of those little niggling feelings that you get in the back of your neck that just maybe they're going too soon.
I
and
think
they should
the only
be playing
disclaimers
within
are there.
themselves a little bit.
The
Apart
only
from the fact that these stats don't bear it out,
Yeah,
Goff
the only disclaimer to
no
that is the fact
yards.
it was against the Titans, and the Titans are garbage. But you're right. I think every team will make a certain amount of mistakes per season, and the Lions aren't making any.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Maybe
Lions
complacency
just
creeps
dominate.
in.
they are dominant, and to win that division, they're going to have to be dominant. But last week they had that really good win against the Vikings. The week before that, they stuck a load of points up. I'm just wondering if they're using all of their mojo, if they're using it in the first half of the season. But we'll see. We'll see. I mean, I'm hoping not. I'm hoping there's a lot more, you know, toys in the playbook. But just keep an eye on them and see what happens.
I want a Lions Super Bowl.
Oh, I want the
We already
Lions to
know.
win the
all
Super
picked
Bowl,
it.
but
We already know it's going to be Lions against the Jags, apparently. So that's going to be
Yeah,
a
Jags
cracking
have made
Super
it now.
Bowl.
Spoiler alert.
So
It's a mentality thing, isn't it? Even if you try to tell them not to, to ease off, the special teams then step up and put 262 yards on them. It's like, even if you thought they were going to like ease off on offense or defense or start pulling starters, it doesn't make any difference. They're still running the score up. So
well, that was the
Shannon,
stat I liked. It was that Goff threw for 85 yards,
3
but had
touchdowns.
3 touchdowns. And they
Yeah.
got 50 points. It's like,
Yeah. Yeah, the positioning was ridiculous. I can't agree with Will Levis, of course, Dave. And Mason Rudolph
no, I
didn't play
know.
that badly. But it's
It's
just,
sort of tongue in cheek, but you might as
ran
well
into a
just say
buzzsaw.
we know that there is a 0% chance Mason Rudolph is your future, like 0% chance. But there's a
More than Joe
2% chance.
Flacco.
There's a 2% chance that Will Levis might be. Something might click. We saw how bad
can't see it
last
ever.
year Jordan Love was, and all of a sudden it clicked and he looked decent.
just
Yeah, but
remind me,
Mason Rudolph got
has
Rudolph
Will
just
Levis been
the playoffs.
benched, or is he just injured?
I think they'll claim injury.
They'll claim injury, but it's one of those.
but it's one of
Yeah.
those they
Is-
just pulled
The
him out.
amount of teams that are benching their young quarterbacks is just
Yeah.
ridiculous. It's
Mm.
turning into an epidemic, and it kind of all stems back to something I've said for years, in that you've got to give these young quarterbacks time to learn the game. You can't keep throwing them in for 5 weeks at the start of their rookie season and expect them to be world beaters. It's just
On-
not going to happen.
On the flip side of it, you've got a really, really good case in point here. And look what happened to Jared Goff in Los Angeles. He was
Yeah.
picked up. Jeff Fisher put him in the side when all was going badly. I think it was Case Keenum who was the starter.
Yep.
Keenum got thrown out of it. Jared Goff came in, looked absolutely pants. Was
Mhm.
awful. Came out, sat for I think it was I don't know if it was another year after that, but anyway, in his first proper season, took him to a Super Bowl. Yes, they lost, but took him to a Super Bowl nevertheless. They need time to develop.
Yeah.
Which is what even Drake May got put in. The Patriots seemed to be doing the right thing by putting in Jacoby Brissett at the start of the season, and then yank him for Drake May after 5 games. So, what's going on? Anyway, we're moving on from that
I
one.
agree with giving them a chance, but you have to be patient. You have to be patient. It's
So
like
either let
giving
him learn,
it's
or
like
you
giving a
throw him
toddler a
in.
knife. Look, there's going to be damage. You just have to
Yeah.
accept that
But
that's what
don't
happens.
pull him again if stuff's going wrong.
No.
Anyway,
Agreed.
let's do the Cardinals at the Dolphins. The battle of the polarizing and bipolar playing quarterbacks. Tua was back and ready to lift all ships on offense once again. Raheem Mostert had 2 rushing touchdowns. Tyreek Hill had 72 yards on 6 catches. And Devon Achane had 147 scrimmage yards and a touchdown. Unfortunately, all that wasn't quite enough to win the game at home over the skittish Cardinals. The defense got a safety of Tua after a fumble. And Kyler was finding Trey McBride again and again, or YOLOing it to Marvin Harrison, which seems to work. Marv got a score, as did James Conner on the ground. As last second Chad Ryland field goal broke Miami hearts. The final score was the Cardinals 28, Dolphins 27.
It took me about 12 hours to realize that the Cardinals had won this game. I'd obviously missed the last few plays at some point, and I was just under the illusion for hours that the Dolphins had won that game.
I was really worried
Cardinals do
halfway
that.
through because I had Arizona plus the spread in my accumulator, and I thought this was the one that was going to let me down. As it was another game that let me down, unfortunately. But yeah, I thought Arizona played really, really well in this game, and I thought the Dolphins underperformed massively. They let themselves down in key positions. Protection on the line was absolutely awful. Yeah, the huge concern to the Dolphins. I don't think they're playing well this season. I know that they lost their quarterback and they tried to shore it up on the run game and sort of mix it up with inside and outside run zones, but they're just not putting a consecutive game together where they actually look impressive. They're looking good in bit parts, and that's it.
I think the thing is, it's still, particularly this game, is, you know, the fact that Tua was back was a huge boost to them, and you can see the fact that they put up the most sort of offensive yards since start of the season, I'm pretty sure. So it's,
Yeah, but it was still fewer offensive yards than Arizona put up.
yeah, but it's, it's still going to be rusty from that point of view that he's going to be. It's going to take him a bit of time to find the groove again.
Oh,
We're not expecting
I
them to
don't
go
put any
into
of
the
it on
brute.
Tua at all. I don't put any of it on. I thought Tua in this game was fantastic first week back. I thought he was really good. I mean, he was 11 of 15 on first down,
Hmm.
third down. Really, really good. Well done to him. It was the rest of
Mm.
them around it. The protection was diabolical. Alex Ingold, who's their fullback, is played. I mean, normally in the NFL, I think the average is you play a fullback plays about 9% of snaps, and that's where you come in
It's
and basically
criminal.
play as extra. I agree with Jim. I love fullbacks.
Yeah.
And they play him in like 72% of snaps. He's having to go in there. What they're basically doing is saying, look, we're going to have to get an extra offensive lineman for when we get bum rushed because
Hmm.
our standard
Mm.
offensive line can't protect him.
Have you seen Liam Eichenberg? Of course, you get an extra protection, mate. You can't.
Yeah,
Their lines are weak. The lines are
yes.
weak on both sides of the ball, and they got spanked for it. I'm sorry. You've got some of the best receivers. You've got a great running back. You've got a really accurate quarterback. But if you can't sort out the lines, you're going to lose games.
Hmm.
Even to the Cards.
And even to the Cardinals. Yeah. Let's move on. Let's
Bit
do
of
the.
shade thrown on the cards there. Unnecessary.
Hey, I still pick them to win some games. Bills at Seahawks. Not again, bro.
We can
Three home
skip this
losses in
one.
a row. The clink is more clunk now, man. The Bills scored a touchdown every quarter as they outgained the Seahawks on the ground and in the air. James Cook cooked with 133 scrimmage yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. This one's brutal for the Seahawks, Finn. Over to you. Final score, Bills 31, Seahawks 10.
Ah, I have I have nothing. I gave up watching this. I
So did your
was
players.
Yeah, well they gave up before they even turned up. I watched till about sort of the midway point of midway point of the third's quite generous. Before that, maybe a couple of drives in the third, and I went, "This is god awful,"
Mm,
and packed it in and watched some paint dry instead.
right.
Um, it just nothing worked, and I don't even, we didn't have DK, but it that wouldn't have made a difference because we just couldn't get anything working. The run game, non-existent. Um, Passing game, they just were on all over us. We just couldn't move the ball, couldn't control the clock. I mean, we had next to nothing in terms of possession. And then you flip and you go look at the defense, and they couldn't do anything. We've been susceptible to the run game. We
Hmm.
know that there's gaps there, but the passing defense has been relatively strong, but they just absolutely tore us apart. Every time they moved the ball, um, they had yards after the catch, or they had big yard plays, and the problem is as well is because the offense had so little time on the field that the defense were constantly
Under
up.
22 minutes, your offense was
It's
on the field at 60.
criminal.
1 of 7 on third down conversions.
It was just defense is going to get tired, and
Yeah.
we were somewhat in it. Um, had the pick when we were 7-3 down, and then we get to the red zone, and then we forget to play football. Gino gets tripped up. I think it was himself, to be honest. I don't even think anyone got to him. The other time in the red zone, we had a high snap which Kenneth managed to recover.
Yeah.
But the fact that we picked Josh Allen on our 30-yard line, had 4 attempts in the red zone, and didn't come away with a single point
Someone can
was
beat you on that score this week, Finn.
Hey there. Hey there.
We'll get to that soon enough. But yeah.
Yeah, just nothing worked.
In the last five
Just
games, you're averaging conceding more than 30 points. We can point to the
That's
offense as
crazy to me
much
because
as
Mike
we
McDonald
want.
is a great
Yeah.
defensive coordinator and expect him to sort this
Defensively,
thing out.
you have been absolutely pants. Considering the first game of the season, that defense was incredible. You didn't miss a tackle.
Mm.
Yeah.
And maybe that was part of the problem. In that first game of the season, the amount of times, the Broncos players were one-on-one, and the Seahawks did not miss a single tackle. I'm like, if we break that tackle, that's it.
We're in.
Massive. At no point was a tackle missed. And it might just be that that's the scheme you're playing. You play in bend, don't break. But unfortunately, at the moment, you're breaking on every play because the amount of massive chunk plays you see. Chris Hansen says, right, we're going to go to Seattle now. And all of a sudden, it's a 60-yard gain. You think, Jesus Christ, come on. But yeah, something has to change there because defensively, they look awful.
Yeah.
I agree. I think for me as well, offensively, Gino's not good enough a quarterback to win you a game if your running game isn't working. If your running game's working, you've got DK as the outball, then you can almost Gino can almost just throw it up towards DK and know at the very least it's gonna get batted down for a incompletion rather than it being picked off because he's so big and so strong that defensive backs can't get around him. But when Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet are averaging 1.3 yards a carry, you're not going to get anywhere. I think we've seen plenty of times Kenneth Walker when he breaks a run or two, it just sets up Gino for that play action. It gives him that little bit of time and that he can find the receivers. But if the running game isn't there, then Gino, I don't think is a good enough quarterback to actually put the team on his back and take them all the way to a win.
It's the
That's the
O-line.
problem we've seen is the run game just hasn't been there all season. We've seen glimpses, and when it actually works is when we, funny enough, win games because it's actually a balanced offense. But nine
Yeah.
times out of 10, we're relying on Gino slogging it. And like
Was
you
Stone
said,
Forsyth back in?
no, I
At
think it
right
was
tackle?
Jarrell.
Oh, not even Jarrell saved it this time.
No, well, there was only so much he can do. He's not God.
You kind of need him at right tackle right now. So
Well,
we're gonna
I might
we
phone
get Holy Ghost in there or something at the very least.
Seattle and see if they want someone else for right tackle.
Yeah,
I mean, I get flattened on the first play, but
you'll
probably
put
do
some
more than
heart into it.
Forsyth. Yeah.
Let's move on. Let's
Well, the only
put
thing I
from
was
that bit's
the only thing I
misery.
wanted to say about Seattle is the fact that currently they're fourth bottom when it comes to average rushing yards per game. So they're not getting enough yards on the ground. That's massively affecting my fantasy team because I've got Kenneth Walker.
Yeah.
And
I
more
do
importantly,
apologise.
I know. More importantly, it's the basis of any good team to the point where if the entire Seattle rushing offense was in the players' rushing yards, they wouldn't be top two. They'd be third. Jordan Mason has got almost as many rushing yards as all of Seattle. The rush game's just not working.
Not there.
Let's do the Eagles at the Bengals. I'm going to start this review by doing something that these guys say I never do, and that is give the Bengals a compliment.
Bloody hell.
Wow.
Only because they lost.
Well,
Do it if they won.
hey, tinge it already, punk. Jesus. Their offense is pretty good. Joe Burrow, without T. Higgins, he'll have to get used to that, by the way, was able to hit his number one target, Jamar Chase, repeatedly and forced tight end Mike Gesicki to step up into the void. But there were 3 plays that lost them the game. Okay, they failed to pick up a 4th down at the end of the 3rd quarter. Then on the next drive, a potential power play of an interception on a deep ball by Burrow. It allowed the Eagles to put up 10 more points and salt the game. And the Eagles weren't as good at all on defense. But their offense is finding a groove, especially against a terrible defense like the Bengals. That's restored now. The final score is the Philadelphia Eagles 37, Bengals 17.
I'll tell you what, the Eagles, they should have been in Call Your Bloody Jets.
No.
Their roster, not their roster, their schedule so far has been easy as pie. They've not played anyone half decent yet. And yes, they beat the Bengals, but the Bengals are there to be beaten at the minute. If they were a coin on the heads, it's a beautiful, gorgeous, lovely picture of Joe Burrow. On the other side, it's just a turd. Their defense is crud, awful, absolutely terrible. And they're there to be scored on.
Yes.
which we saw. I think as well the Bengals always are a either the offense plays well, but 9 times out of 10 the defense doesn't play well. But on the occasional game, the defense has in relation to their usual a relatively good game, but then the offense can't get going. But this was just, they were making things happen offensively, but like you said, it was just the fact that the Eagles were just putting up points at points easily as well, which will be a huge concern. But the Bengals know they've got problems on the defense, but it seems to be something that they never really iron out.
Yeah, you had that Devonta Smith touchdown lob over Jordan Battle, and then you had a really great the first rushing touchdown for Jalen Hurts, where they had Miles Murphy spying him. If you go back and watch it, they're spying him. He still takes the run and still runs past him for a touchdown, which was quite funny. So even if you're trying to spy this guy, you ain't stopping the touchdown against the Eagles. Yeah, it's a real shame. It's a real shame that the Bengals are so bad on defense and wasting Joe Burrow. Maybe you should look for a trade. Jamar Chase obviously hasn't got a new contract yet.
Seattle, quite an up and
Jamar
coming
Chase is
team.
going to the Broncos, mate.
Might do.
What's unbelievable is that the Bengals, if I told you the Bengals didn't punt in this game and there was 2 turnovers, but other than that, they scored on pretty much every single one of their possession, you'd have said, wow, they must score in the 30s. No, they got 17. The maths don't work. I don't understand it.
It's about setting new records, Dave.
Yeah.
Anything to add there, Punk? We can move on.
Not really. I think you covered it all.
Beautiful.
I
Okay.
love the fact the Bengals are just like, nah, no need.
Good offense, bad
It
defense.
feels like we say the same thing about the Bengals
Yeah.
every single week. The defense is rubbish. Their offense is good when it's working, but they're not putting up enough points to win games. And if you can't stop anybody, you're not going to win games.
And Joe Burrow, more importantly, is killing my fantasy team.
I'm sure you can find someone nice on the waiver wires. Will Levis.
I got Sam Darnold, but every time I put Darnold in, he has a bad week. And obviously, when I put Burrow in, he has a bad week as well. So I'm just torching everyone at the moment.
If you look at him in interviews, it looks like he's in his second tour of Vietnam at the moment. His just eyes are 1,000 yards staring out. It's like
me or Joe Burrow.
Joe Burrow, not you.
All right, I was gonna say. Yeah, fantasy's been rough. What can I say?
Let's do the Falcons at the Bucks. Atlanta get Tampa Bay on the right day. The first week after losing both Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, the Bucks were trying their best, but when you push it as much as Baker does, it's only a matter of time before the turnovers start. Both his picks came inside the Atlanta 10-yard line too. So the fact they finished only 5 points off is pretty impressive. Final score was the Falcons 31, Buccaneers 26.
The Buccaneers suck without their 2 main receivers. And again, I don't know what or who the Falcons are because they flattered to deceive, but still managed to win a game. It is bizarre.
4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions for Cousins.
I think regardless of whether you've got your best 2 receivers in, anytime you're asking Baker Mayfield to throw a ball 50 times, that's not winning football.
Yeah,
it's just not. All right. Rushing wasn't anything to write home about, but you can't be having Baker who, like you say, tries to push the ball down the field far too often sometimes anyway. If you've got him throwing 50 times, yes, he'll have nice, pretty stat lines and be great in fantasy because he'll have, 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. But equally, it's going to be the 2 interceptions that absolutely kill you. And I really don't know what to think of the Buccaneers now. Obviously, with Evans and Godwin in there, you look at them as an almost perennial playoff team because they just play. They're not fantastic, but they play good, solid football. Without them, I worry that they might end up falling off the cliff and losing too many one-score games to even make the playoffs. So, be interesting to see kind of if they can iron out that running game a bit more to take a bit of the load off Baker in the coming weeks, because I think that's the only way that they're going to be able to carry on winning games this season.
He's got the offensive line for it. Their offensive line might be one of the best in the NFC.
Possibly, but they're going to have to do something because they can't rely on Baker throwing it as much as he did in this game to go and win games. On the flip side, I think you're right with the Falcons. I kind of understand what they are, but I kind of don't, in that they have moment plays. They seem to play in moments, but consistency, not really.
Would you say that they're a candidate to be included in the Call You Jets?
The
'Cause I
Falcons,
think
Jets weren't
ooh,
that hot. That's the problem.
they're 5-3.
I think a 5-3 Falcons team is
An
it's
anomaly. It
probably
never normally happens.
It's no, that's true, but I mean, it's not that long ago they were in a Super Bowl, so
It is. You're just old. It's a
It's
long
not
time
that.
now,
Unfortunately, it's
mate.
not that long.
it's not that long
Yeah, it's
ago.
not been that long.
28-3.
Yeah.
We're still talking Matt Ryan and Julio Jones, so it's not that long ago.
Brady was still a Patriot. It feels like a long time ago.
Yeah, I'm not going back to Randy Moss's rookie season where the Vikings should have been lost in the NFC conference game. Anyway, we're getting distracted.
Digress.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know. I think the problem I have is that the Falcons will almost coast now. I think they've beaten the Bucks twice already, so that's in theory the division wrapped up almost. As long as they just consistently keep winning games, and with New Orleans and Carolina being the other two teams in that division, yeah, the odds are that's
pretty much
pretty
wrapped
much
it
going
up.
to be sewn up by week sort of 12.
Mhm.
But I don't know, man. I think Atlanta are going to be one of those teams that will make the playoffs quite comfortably, but you don't truly believe they're going to do anything
Get
to get there.
absolutely tonked.
Exactly. They'll come up against Detroit or something and just end up, or the Vikings, and just end up going, oh, hang on, I thought we were supposed to be good.
Unless
But
they meet
yeah,
the
I
Jags
think
in the Super
they've
Bowl,
got
who
bits,
knows?
they've got
Well,
pieces.
Well, they are
Bijan's
making it.
great, and Bates is great,
Cole
and
Pitts got 2 touchdowns in this game.
Cole Pitts finally did
They actually
something in
started
year
to use
3
him,
of
yeah.
his career. But
Didn't
I mean,
help my
I'm sure he
bleeding
got
fantasy
2. I
team,
think
though,
he
did
got
it?
1 actually,
no.
didn't he? He definitely threw that ball away before he crossed the goal line. But
Yeah.
yeah,
What's wrong with these players?
we haven't had one of those for a while, so it would have been quite interesting to see the reaction if it hadn't been given.
There was one in college a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And to go
I
back
mean, in
to
theory, just to finish off that thought, though, I mean,
Mm.
in theory, Atlanta are currently the 3rd best team in the NFC,
Crazy.
which is a
Yeah.
bit nuts when you think about, Arizona, Green Bay, Minnesota, Detroit, Washington,
yeah,
Yeah,
we need to call the
Tampa,
Jags because they're
yeah.
not. They're not the 3rd best team. That's the thing.
But from their record, they
But
are.
on paper,
So
they are, yeah. That's
Yeah.
the
it's
The Call You
it's
Jets is more
kind of
about
one of those,
preseason.
are our eyes deceiving us?
Yeah.
Are they actually
Mine are. I
playing
need some
well, and
stronger
we're just
glasses.
being a little bit blinkered? I don't
Your
know.
fantasy team, Dave.
But it'll be interesting to see what happens going on.
Jim, stop going on about my fantasy team. That's all
You
you're on
stop going
about
about your
all the
fantasy team.
time.
We've had enough about your
Oh.
bloody fantasy
tell you
team,
what,
mate.
There's more
Cousins is
to
a
it
great
than that.
pickup in my fantasy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Cousins has done all right for me, apart from the weeks when I've dropped him for Darnold, in which case,
Oh, my word.
Do you want to trade?
no, I'm
I'm
good.
gonna
Thank you.
offer you a trade as
I'm
we're
good.
talking.
You're
Actually,
going to offer me a trade. I
No,
don't
not
actually
you.
know which
Not
which
you.
of my many teams I've got those
I
two
want
in. It
Kirk
might not
Cousins.
even be the right team.
He's
I wanna-
after Cousins.
I want to move on to the next game. Let's do the Saints at the Chargers. And the Saints now have the longest active losing streak in NFL after putting up just 8 points in LA. It's not hard to see why. The team is rudderless under Dennis Allen. He's now wrenching his rookie quarterback out in the middle of games. The run defense is notoriously bad, and the pass defense isn't much better. On a positive note, wide receiver Chris Olave was back and had over 100 receiving yards, but 2 touchdowns for Chargers rookie Lad McConkey and 1 rushing touchdown for J.K. Dobbins was more than enough to see the Saints away. Final score, Saints 8, Chargers 26.
This game threw up some lovely scorelines.
Does everyone want to talk about the Saints before I rag on the Chargers for a minute?
There's not much to say about the Saints.
There's not much
Well,
to say
I just
about
said
the
I just said
Saints,
they're the
but you
Aints
crack
now, aren't
on.
they? Terrible team.
The
Just
Chargers
sort of all falling
look
apart.
ineffective, disjointed, and I don't know what else I can. There's no other words I can say that are going to usurp them. I was hoping for a really punchy one to come to me at the end of that. They just don't look like a team who are going to win against another decent side. They just look like a team who've got nothing about them. There's no backbone there. It's really bizarre. And I get they beat the Saints and
by
fine.
18 points.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah,
fine.
but
The
it's the
Saints
Saints.
are so bad. I mean, there was one point, the wife came in and this game at one point I think was 3-2 because it was a safety. And she went, "How is this 3-2? I didn't think you could get that score in the NFL. That's how bad the game was." Justin Herbert was 20 of 32, and if his passer rating was above 10, then it's a travesty. They didn't run the ball particularly effectively. They've got no wide receiver help, and this isn't an AFC West thing. I'm a fan of Justin Herbert. I think he's very, very good. I've seen him play against the Broncos enough times well,
Hmm.
but they're just not looking like the machine I was expecting them to look like under Harbaugh. I was expecting them to be better than they are, and they're not.
Oh,
I think you're
They're
being harsh on
ineffective.
Herbert.
that seems a
I
bit
think you're
harsh.
being very
Yeah.
harsh on Herbert, considering he was what 20 of 32, 279 and 2 touchdowns,
Yeah,
no
and of those
interceptions.
20 completions, how many of them were within 10 yards and were yards after carry?
Well, does that matter?
A
As long
bit.
as they're being caught and it's happening. I mean, Lab McConkey had his best game
Yeah.
Mm.
since
And a lot of them, he throws them
coming
into
into
the
the
chest
league.
and they're bouncing off him.
You know, you know,
Get
I
better
think, I think,
receivers.
I think part of the, yeah,
You
no, I
should.
agree. I think the problem is
That's
that the Chargers don't have the receivers. I think
Mm.
McConkey's
Mm.
starting to show that he can be a good receiver, but he's definitely not a out and out number one. You
No, he's
know,
a number 3.
He doesn't
so yeah.
replace Keenan Allen.
So if Herbert's having to play with those type of receivers, I think it's a little harsh to say that in a week where he's probably had more touchdowns passing than he has in the past 3 games.
But
It's
Hmm.
he's capable. And my thing was always, what are you capable of? And he's capable of taking this team and being so much better than he currently is.
It needs
Well,
the
I
players
don't think
around
it's
him.
him. I don't think it's Herbert. I
No,
think it's a combination of Harbaugh and the way he wants to play, and the fact they just don't have the receivers to help him out.
it is his
Yeah,
first season as well, Harbaugh back in the league. You've got to give him more than 8 games to implement an entire new system. It's going to take a couple of drafts to get his guys in.
But we've seen consistently that his system is able to get up and running very quickly. I just expect the Chargers against the Saints as well. Maybe not against it. Maybe it's a bit harsh because they did look okay in this game. I'm not only talking about this game. I'm talking about the entire season. They've not looked like the slick, disciplined machine that I think I was expecting them to have.
Hmm.
And again,
Well,
I had them ranked lower than all of you guys at the beginning of the season. I think I had them bottom of the
you
AFC
probably did.
West.
You probably
Yeah,
did.
but I just don't
Um,
think they're as good as I thought they were going to be. And
I'm
part of
sure
that
they're
was
really
me
gutted that
trolling them a
they're
little bit.
they're disappointing you as a Broncos fan.
I know, right? Devastated.
Let's talk about the Panthers and the Broncos then, shall we? Congratulations, Dave. This is a game where you can't really win, can you? I mean, if you beat them, it's expected. Yet if somehow you lose to them, then it's a disaster. You didn't lose, but there was a time where the Panthers were actually up after a first drive with Bryce Young getting a touchdown pass to the Xavier Legette. But the Panthers' confidence is as fragile as Andy Dalton's thumb, and the Broncos were able to eventually sort this one away. The final score was the Panthers 14, Broncos 28.
I think I've said to about 5 or 6 people, this is a
Not to
really,
us.
really straightforward game. I think I said it to Punk. We didn't get
Not
out of
on the
third
recording.
gear. We didn't really get it out of third gear. Panthers were terrible. We collect the win and carry on. And when you say it's a no-win game, it's literally not. We won. So it's not a no-win game. We won.
Well, you
It's
can,
because the
no, it
Broncos. You can't
literally
give
is
any
a win,
praise.
no win game because if you lose to the Panthers,
I was
then
terrified we were going to lose to the
you,
Panthers.
yeah,
you could have
exactly.
done. You could have
You'd
done.
sit in the bargain basement with us, no matter what
Yeah.
your record is.
Yeah.
But
No, when we were down in the first quarters because little Jordan Humphrey decided to try and carry the ball and some absolute massive tonker came in and punched it out. Um, and we ended up losing possession, went down, blah blah blah. Bryce Young looked better than I thought he had in previous games. This is probably his
Okay.
best game in all honesty, but yeah, it wasn't a difficult game. It really wasn't a difficult game. The Broncos just were playing within themselves, and yeah, it was relatively easy.
Just like that.
Yeah. And there's no Cool You Jets for the Broncos because we know coming up we've got the Ravens and the Chiefs, and we know there's a couple of spankings potentially coming up.
Don't
But
worry, Dave. You weren't in consideration.
no, I
Call you
know,
Jets.
I know. We know exactly what we are, son.
Just
Don't
got to
worry
put it
about
out
that.
there,
Yeah.
just in case.
But it's worth mentioning that Bo Nix does now hold the Broncos record for most wins for a rookie quarterback.
That's not a
So-
great stat for your team.
Yeah, I
The
don't know.
fact that Bo
I don't
Nix
know
has
how
got a
good that
record
is.
for that. That's how bad your previous rookies were.
Potentially. One of
I
them
can
was John Elway, in fairness. So
yeah, that was back in the 70s, wasn't it?
80s, son. Come on.
Was it 80s?
80,
Just
83.
it must have oh,
Start of that
83. Okay,
mad 83
when I was
draft.
born.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Right. So 2 games left. Let's do the Chiefs at the Raiders. You're down. I'm gonna do inspired by Punk's power plays. So I'm gonna rate this one different. You're down 4 points at home, and you've just intercepted the best quarterback in football and got the ball back at their 3-yard line.
Cheers, Jeff.
So what does your offense do? Well, you run 3 runs up the middle for no score. Then go for it, and your quarterback gets sacked on the 8-yard line. The perfect encapsulation of the Raiders' season. You can't get a win when you're being helped. The Chiefs were able to yet again control the game, converting 12 of 16 third downs, as Andy Reid now has the most head coach wins at Allegiant Stadium. Yikes. Final score was the Chiefs 27, Raiders 20.
The problem with that record is that no one's actually been a Raiders head coach long enough to get enough.
Well, that doesn't help. Yeah,
but
it's going to go well for Pierce
that
to
will
get that
change
high.
eventually. I'm
Give it a few years.
neutral,
Yeah.
so I'm not going on this. But yeah, I mean
You
the
are,
play
yeah.
calling on that. Intercept the ball. You're down at the 3. What are you doing? You've not been able to run it between the tackles the entire game. So what are you going to do? Oh, we're going to run it 3 times between the tackles. And then when that doesn't work, we're going to forget to block on a passing play that is just the most obvious passing play. It's just ridiculous. Getsy needs to go. It's just insanity. It's what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result.
Yeah.
It's like everyone can see it. The whole of Twitter, even people that don't watch the NFL go, why are the Raiders still doing that? It's insane. It's absolutely insane what they're doing. The defense, to be fair to them, isn't too bad. They've managed to hold the Chiefs. This is a game that the Chiefs should have lost. There were opportunities. We had 3 visits to the red zone and came away with 3 points. It's just not good enough. It's ridiculous. Now, I'm not saying, if we score 2 touchdowns on 2 of those, then we're definitely going to win the game. You've got Mr. Head of the referees on the other side. But as you say, it would definitely help if you put some points on the board. So
the Chiefs had more penalties and more penalty yards than the Raiders in this game.
That's fine. It doesn't matter because they were
just
winning.
your narrative about them always getting the results.
No, if they'd been losing on the final drive, something would have.
Of course,
almost guaranteed.
I agree.
Yeah.
The unprovable. Let's keep going.
Absolutely. But
listen, man, I messaged Punk saying the Raiders might just do this when there was the tipped interception on the 10-yard line.
Yeah, you had to, didn't you?
I got a message
you killed
don't
it.
be soft. I mean, it's nothing to
I
do
literally
with
did
me.
reply, don't be soft. I knew what was going to happen at that moment. So, it's one of them. We definitely need to start tanking for our quarterback. Who that quarterback is, I don't know. That's up to you guys to figure out.
Sanders is Colorado Buffs.
You don't want him,
really?
You don't want
isn't that
Sanders.
just a whole load of noise that
comes? He comes with a lot of noise.
Drama.
Comes with a lot of noise. The Cool Your Jets should have been surrounded about the Chiefs. They're not a 7-0 team.
They're not a 7-0 team.
Not a chance.
No,
absolutely stranglehold in this game. That's what they do. They don't need to blow out any team. They're just doing enough to win.
More the season I'm worried about.
No, they're going to win. They're going to get a 3-peat. We know it. All right.
No, they're not. The Jags are.
We're shuffling chairs on the Titanic here.
Power League legends have spoken.
Yeah, I know.
No, I think the Raiders being within 7 with opportunities to strike out. I think it's better than I would have thought of. I thought it was going to be a huge blowout. So the fact the Raiders stayed in it, I think it's a bit of a credit. And there was a few plays in there where, if the wind had blown in a different direction, then something might have happened where it gives them an opportunity.
Exactly.
But you're right,
but it's
Jim. You're right. The Chiefs did enough.
It's the same old Raiders, though, isn't it? It's ifs, buts, and maybes.
Yeah.
So you get one good play and then you waste it by doing stupid stuff. So it's just typical Raiders football. So we're bottom of the barrel.
The other thing to say though,
Let's
Is
move
Still
on.
we, you're saying there. You're
The other
not
thing
giving
to
us
sorry,
say,
they.
though,
Well,
The
you asked me to take it on as a Raiders fan, so I
Oh,
did that.
putting
But
himself
I
in the
love you being a
shoes.
Raiders fan.
yeah. The other thing to say though is if you don't get Shador Sanders, you could end up with Quinn Ewers, who is your Texas quarterback. You obviously don't need me to tell you that.
absolutely, of course.
So yeah, you could follow him all the way from college to the NFL
You want Arch Manning, mate, who's going to be taken over.
in about 5 years.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Still,
say-
wait for a Manning.
That's
I want
right.
a Manning.
We'll still be in need of a quarterback.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I
Quinn
mean-
Ewers isn't good enough.
Get the
So
contract done
Let's
now.
be honest. The Giants tried getting a man in, and they ended up with Daniel Jones with the thighs of 1,000-mile steer. So it doesn't always
Yeah,
go
but
well.
to be fair, they did get the right Manning in 2 Super Bowls before that. So
Yeah, I know. It's just they went for the
They got
facial
a
features
Manning.
again and got Daniel
Got
Jones.
something very different.
Hmm.
we've got one more game to do, and that is the Monday night game with the Giants at the Pittsburgh Steelers. A bit like the Broncos game.
definitely,
There are no
Corey
real
Jack.
prizes for beating this Giants team, who have now lost their last 3 after beating the Seahawks in Seattle. Not a great game. Sorry about that. Not a
Didn't
great
have to
game
bring that
overall.
back up, did you?
You just can't help it, can
We
you?
finished. We moved
Can't
on from
help
Seattle.
but get the digs in.
Calm down, cool you just. Not a great game overall. Slow first half with Pittsburgh getting close time and again, only to settle for field goals. But a certain power play from Calvin Austin on a punt return touchdown sparked the Steelers. He'd get another catching touchdown later in the game to keep Pittsburgh clear. A Russell Wilson fumble gave the Giants a sniff, but a TJ Watt sack fumble recovery and another pick by Beanie Bishop saw the Steelers hit their bye week with a 6-2 as the Steelers extend their Monday night record home streak to 22-0 since 1992. The final score was the Giants 18, Steelers 26.
Bit of an irrelevant stat at the end there, but thanks.
Well, we're unbeaten at home since 1992 on Monday night.
Do you know what?
Okay.
There should be a felony watch. Insert sound effect because it's criminal that you won this game. You gave up so
What?
many opportunities for
I
the
was going to
Giants
say
to win
the
it.
Giants didn't play too badly, to be
Yeah.
fair. They were all right. That
We were
their
better.
defense especially
You were
was-
punching down. That's what you were
Did you
doing.
say you were
played
better?
down.
We were better.
You said,
Mm.
I said we were. I think I said we were better because that's what I meant to say.
Oh yeah.
It's not
I
on.
did-
It's not. In the old days, we didn't used to punch down. We used to play down to bad opponents. So it's nice to actually get a win against these teams because these have been trap games all over the place for us. We play well against the big teams, play bad against the bad teams. We beat a bad team, which is why I said it was no win situation for us because we expected to beat them.
no, but the Giants, I think, have got something about them still.
If you
they're
take
better
the
than
Giants away
Panthers.
from home, they play reasonably well.
Mm.
All right,
Because
Dan Jones
they've
got
got
one
a-
more game before he gets benched.
Nah, behave more than that.
They're not
Yeah.
benching him this season. They're paying him too much money.
Who's
Yeah,
the
we'll
backup?
see.
It's Drew
Drew
Lock,
Lock.
isn't it?
Not D'Angelo.
No, it's Drew Lock.
No, it's
Horse
Drew
cock
Lock.
Lock.
World class QB is.
I like Drew Lock. Hey, Drew Lock winning in against San Diego as they were then is the reason I've got a son. If he didn't win that night, I might not have anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I thought it was a good performance. Darius Slayton looked really, really good in this game, and I think they've got something in Tyrone Tracy as well. This team
Definitely.
just needs a quarterback. That's all it needs, and
Yeah.
it doesn't need a rookie. Go out in bloody free agency and get someone.
Go and buy someone. Go spend a bit of cash.
Yeah, Deshaun Watson will be on the block soon. Ooh, don't do that. Don't do that. No, forget that.
They'll probably end up with Jameis Winston. Won't they?
Yeah, it might be an upgrade though.
True. He can certainly throw a touchdown.
Yeah, go get Justin Fields. Fields in this
He's not having him.
Giants team, hey man, he's not going to be. He's
And
not
with
gonna
Zach
be,
Wilson as well.
he's not going to be hanging
I
around a
can get
long time
behind
if he's
that.
sitting behind
Not
Russell
having
Wilson.
him. Well,
Yeah, you wanted to get rid of Wilson.
we'll get rid of Wilson then.
No,
Not
he's
having
just
Fields.
start, mate.
Giants.
You're
He's
not
just
having
start,
Fields.
mate. you don't get a say. And they'll get him for a conditional 7th. That's what
Yeah,
they'll get.
yeah. Anyway, those were the games of week 8. And one last thing for us to do, obviously, and that is ask Punk for the power plays.
We do have some.
Beautiful.
It was quite a long list this week, actually. So we've got
Ooh.
quite a lot of honorary mentions before we get to the actual power
Oh.
plays.
Okay, strap in.
So we're going to start with Joe Mixon's Texas Tornado TD run, where he spins his defender all the way around and then dumps him on the floor.
Mhm.
We've got Stone Cold Steve Austin's punt return for the Steelers. Khalif Raymond's kickoff return for his touchdown.
Boom,
Lad
okay.
McConkey's 61-yard touchdown reception. CJ Gardner Johnson's tip drill interception for Philly. And then finally, on the honorable mentions, before going into this one, I think we should just hold a minute's silence for Ernest Jones.
Who?
He got decapitated by James Cooks on his touchdown run to the Bills. So, rest in peace, Mr. Jones.
It's fucking brutal.
When you see a head rolling across the back of an end zone, it's not a pretty sight.
No.
So there we go. They're the honorary mentions. So now we'll go on to this week's power plays. So you're down by 10 with only 9 minutes 26 left to play. On 3rd and 10 at the opponent's 25-yard line, the quarterback takes the snap. The defense has rushed 5 and the protection is struggling to hold up. Sliding up in the pocket to avoid the rush, the quarterback flicks his wrist and the ball sails towards the right pylon of the goal line. Having delayed his get off from the line to allow the other receiver to run his route, Josh Downs burns past his defender, and as he goes up to catch the ball, realizes it's flying over his head. Leaping like a breaching shark, he flings himself backwards, covering 3 yards in the process, to snag the overthrown ball for a touchdown and give the Colts hope against the Texans. Josh Downs is a very short receiver, very nippy receiver.
Not vertically gifted.
It was a fantastic catch, to be fair. There were a few good catches this week, actually. Not all have made the honourable mentions or the power plays, but I thought this was a good week, actually. There was lots of kick returns, lots of good catches, and some interesting plays as well. So on to this one. It's 2nd and 8 at your own 31-yard line, midway through the second quarter. The quarterback under pressure shovels the ball out to his running back, who jukes a defender and barrels forward for a first down. So far, so good. But back behind the line of scrimmage, Nathan Shepard has clearly been told by Sean Payton he would still pay good money for a quarterback's leg. So he decided to gator-roll Justin Herbert's ankle. Not once,
Sean
but twice.
Payton.
Upon seeing this, Bradley Bozeman gets a little angry. You really shouldn't be getting a 6'5", 317-pound man angry. Noting that his quarterback's leg was still in a vice-like grip, Bozeman launches at Shepard with a devastating forearm while rolling the defender off his quarterback. Pinning Shepard to the ground, Bozeman in no uncertain terms tells him what he thinks of bullying before Herbert pulls him away.
I support that 100%, by the way. There's nothing I love more than seeing an offensive lineman go to war for his quarterback.
Yeah,
there was a
exactly.
college game, I think it was Boise State or something like that. And there was a guy sacked the quarterback. It was like rugby league, where you lay on him for a minute to let everyone get back in position. He would get off.
Yeah.
And then he rolled off and 3 linesmen came in and just destroyed him. And the guy got, it was your own bloody fault, mate.
Yeah.
I love it. That not on my watch mentality of looking after his quarterback will have pretty much earned him another contract as well. Because
why is it always going to be the Saints?
Harbaugh would have probably given him an unofficial game ball afterwards. So it's
the
I love it.
£5
I think that was probably my favorite play of this week, if I'm honest. But yeah, any time big man smashes other big man is always quite fun.
Yeah.
Right, on to what this segment is all about, the epitome of a power play. This play is the reason that this segment was started, as it's to highlight a great play that will probably have gone unnoticed. With so many highlight touchdowns and interceptions, sometimes a run on 2nd and 5 for 20-odd yards may get missed. So I urge you all to pause this podcast right now and go and look up the Saints at the Chargers game.
We'll show it in the background. Don't worry, we'll show it on the video.
Fast forward to 3 minutes 23 left in the third quarter. The Saints have the ball and are nearly at midfield. Alvin Kamara takes the handoff and runs left, where he's met by the back of one of his offensive linemen and 2 defenders. He's also a yard behind the line of scrimmage. His forward progress is virtually stopped, but Kamara says, "Get me to the bank." He drags the defender, who's consistently ripping at the ball on his back, for 5 yards to the first down marker, then breaks free. With a little daylight, he gains another 10 yards quickly before he breaks another 2 arm tackles and is finally dragged down at the Chargers' 30-yard line. Strength, power, pace, everything that power play should be, and it's amazing what a new contract can do for a player. I can't
being out of jail
that one without writing 6 pages of A4. It really is one that needs to be seen to be believed. So go and look that one up. Right. In the NFL, it's never a good idea to assume a game is over until it's actually over. This week's candidate for the What the Just Happened award goes to Jaden Daniels and Noah Brown. With Chicago looking to have snuck out of Northwest Stadium with the win, the usual Hail Mary play is in effect. Now, I'm not going to explain how Daniels took the snap and rolled right, then left for about 13 seconds before uncorking, or even that Chicago's Tyreek Stevenson met karma, having been taunting the crowds just seconds before. What I am going to say is that this was the moment that all Washington fans realized that after years in the wilderness, this team is different and that anything could be possible.
It's a
And
crazy
that's
play.
power plays.
Crazy play. Thank you very much,
I mean,
Punk.
I don't, everyone's seen the Hail Mary by now at least 27 times, probably with commentary in 6 different languages. So I think what that play means to that organization will be far more going into the rest of this season than the fact it was a touchdown.
My favorite thing about this play was speaking to Commander Paul on Monday, and him saying that because it was quite late and everyone else had gone to bed, he was running around the living room celebrating, but trying to be as quiet as possible.
Done that before.
Yeah, I sent him a message on Twitter, literally seconds after it happened, saying exactly that. You can stop running around naked around your front room now.
Why does he have to be naked?
Who
Excitement.
knows? But I just assume that's what all Commander fans do.
Listen, Commander Paul, he's nothing but a glory hunter now. All his teams are doing really well. Wigan Warriors won the Super League. He's got a NFL team very good. We just be thankful the fact he's a Dundee United supporter.
Oh
So
my word.
not everything's going well.
Bringing
There's
back
got to be
down
something.
to earth.
There's got to be something. Well, there we go. There is the Week 8 review done. If you've got this far, make sure you're subscribing to us on Patreon for free if you want to, and obviously on all of our social media stuff as well. We're on YouTube as well if you want to catch up the videos on there. But yeah, we're going to be back very shortly with the Week 9 predictions pod. Until next week, though, I've been Jim, that's been Finn, that's been Dave, that's been Punk Raider, and thank you very much for listening.